Speaking of the legend, there it is, right? These are the icons that you have been provided, right? There's the player path that I've just talked about and the optional path. So yeah, if there's anything that you want to communicate, make sure it's included in the map. Talking about the terrain, there's these areas over here. So if you want to break up these colors into, the brown is walkable, the light brown is the unwalkable, the barrier area. Feel free to communicate all of that in the terrain as in the layout as well up here. Here we have the two-way and one-way doors, or two-way or one-way transitions that you were set up in your flowchart. So you can place these icons where those specific interactions take place. So just real quick to go over how these icons can be used, or should be used, is the icons help communicate important information on the map itself. All right? So first and foremost, if we think of a checkpoint, right? A checkpoint, it can be an actual physical object in the level, right? If you have like a flag or something visual to represent where it takes place. But the checkpoint for us as a designer, right, as the developers building this content, is a trigger volume, right? The player walks into this area, that location is saved, and now they're able to come back to that point if they die. That's what it is representing. It doesn't represent a physical object. Same thing with these mechanics, right? Introduce, practice, and master just shows us so we can visually lay out where the mechanics are being used throughout the level. It doesn't necessarily mean this is something you're going to see in the game. It just helps communicate where information happens on the level. That's what mostly all of these icons are here to do, is to communicate where those interactions take place. One of them, or a few of them that are unique to that, is the car and the player start icon to start with, right? We're going to talk about those two to begin with. And the crate as well can be a good example of this. The player start icon, and this is why it's so important that you don't scale any of these icons. This actually represents the size of our player inside of Unity. So when we bring this into Unity and we bring your map inside of it, we're going to make the player start icon and the player the same exact size. So you need to make sure you keep this to scale, right? So know that you're building a map, you're building a level for this player start icon. This is the size of the player, right? This car over here, you'll see it says do not scale, right? So please do not scale this car to make it bigger or smaller to fit within your level, right? This is the size of an actual car inside of Unity. You'll see if you take your player start icon and drag it and drop it, right where the driver's seat would be, or right near the car, you'll see that they are proportionate. They are scaled to each other. So we have our character we can drop in the world. When we have the car on our map, when we drop that into Unity, we can take a car asset and put it right on top of there, and it will be proportionate to the player. Same thing goes for the crate, right? If you bring this into Unity and drop a crate on there, that will be proportionate to the player itself. So keep that in mind. The player start icon is meant to resemble the size of the player. So if you're building hallways or you're building platforms and the player start icon doesn't fit down the hallway, the character is going to have a hard time fitting down that hallway. So keep that in mind. Any large objects that you're going to have in your level, all right, so we have this vehicle, right? That's a pretty large object. That's something bigger than the player that takes up a lot of physical space. You can create an icon or a shape or some symbol that represents that object and think about its actual size. So if you had a fire truck, or if you had a crane or some large piece of construction equipment, actually try and make it to scale, or a big helicopter or a big ship. I just worked with a student that had a downed like a sailboat ship, right? And he made sure that the scale was correct to make sure it was the size he was portraying or he was envisioning. So if they're large objects, feel free to create them yourself, like a tank or a crane or a bulldozer, something big. Create it out of simple shapes. You'll see that this car is just, the square with the curved edges with another one that's a slightly a slightly lighter red color, and 2 ones that are blue to represent windows. Again, this is the object from a top-down perspective. It doesn't need to be extremely detailed with like lights and a logo and stripes and all the bells and whistles. It just needs to help represent scale and proportion. All right. So yeah, these are the icons you'll use for your major mechanics. We'll talk about that coming up, as well as some other ones that you can read through to see what those are used for. As well as down here, we have the section for blank and user defined. So you can either start with this blank icon base and add something on top of it, represent your own custom icon. You can also use this great website to create some of these, right? So here are some examples that I had made just to demonstrate what you can do on this website, as well as these icons, the introduce, practice, and master, were also made on that website. That website is game-icons.net. It's a great resource to utilize. That link is in the actual map assignment. So if you need to get access to that, there's a quick link. But game-icons.net. You can select the icon you want and then start to change the colors, right? You can change specific colors or parts of it. They've added a lot of new features, so now you can include text right on top of it. You can change the background shape. You can break them off into different colors where you can see the block is green, the guy is purple, and the little things above his head are orange or red. So we have a lot of customization you can add to it. So when you're doing this, do what you can to match the current scheme of the icons, right? So by default, on this website, they're going to be all black and white, right? If you just add black and white icons to this, they're going to stick out like a sore thumb. But if you add colors, like I've done to these ones down here, and add some visuals that can connect them and make it feel like they fit within the icons themselves. And it's not required, but something you want to do as a designer is try and make your work fit into the work you've been given or your starting point.